We are gathered here to fill you with fear and give you a treat for your ears as we invade your mind with our scary rhymes and some tales that can be gory. As you bear witness and sit here and listen to our poetic horror stories.
Hello, PHS crew! We have a question for you. What would you do if someone tries to force you into a marriage you don't want? Let's start a conversation in the comments below. We are dying to know.
Hello, my name is Lindsay, and today is my wedding day. This should be a really happy occasion for me, but unfortunately, it ain't. You see, my grandmother Ruby promised my hand in marriage as a part of a business transaction. And I'm not even marrying a human being. No, I'm marrying the devil. Yeah, I know this sounds unbelievable. I can't believe it myself. But rather, if I like it or not, unfortunately, this is really happening. This is crazy. Now let me explain from the beginning. When I was born to my parents, Father Michael, and my mother, Gabriel. They were the only family members I knew I had. I remember being happy with them. That is, until tragedy took them from me. It was a really bad car accident. I will spare you the gory details. I'll just say, they both were decapitated. They lost their heads. They were on a date night. They were on their way home. I was with a babysitter. I was only 5 years old. I was left alone. I was now an orphan. But out of nowhere, my grandmother Ruby suddenly appeared. She claimed me. She took me in. She was my only living relative. As time moved on and I got older, my grandmother explained to me about the rift between her and my mother. How her and my mother had an argument over a misunderstanding, which led to my mother running away. My grandmother Ruby said she searched for my mother everywhere, and she never stopped looking for her. She searched for her for years. She was really happy to find me when she did. But the fight with my mother, she now regrets. I felt sad for my grandmother at the end of her story. But there was more to my grandmother Ruby's story that she didn't tell, because my grandmother was keeping a big secret from me. This is just a friendly reminder to please like and comment to let us know how we are doing so far. We would love to hear from you all. And if you're new, please subscribe and become a part of the PHS crew. And we thank you. My grandmother Ruby was very sweet, but very protective of me. She never let me out of her sight for too long. As I matured, all I was allowed to do was go to school, and from school, I needed to immediately go home. She also chose my friends, and I wasn't allowed to date boys. I started to think to myself, I see why my mother ran away from home. This was no way for anybody to live. I'm young, and I wanted to go out and have fun. My grandmother seemed very old-fashioned, and her beliefs also seemed very outdated to me. I really wanted her to give me space. I wanted to be free. Don't get me wrong, I'm grateful for my grandmother, and she gave me anything and everything I ever wanted and needed. Did I forget to mention my grandmother Ruby was very wealthy? She had lots of money. Indeed, Ruby was the CEO of her own candle company. Her company name was Black Magic Aromatherapy. She started making candles after my grandfather died, and to take care of my mother and herself. She started making and selling her homemade candles, and from there, suddenly her sales took off. My grandmother's candles are in well-known popular stores, like Walmart, Target, Home Goods, Bath & Body Works, Bed Bath & Beyond. You can also order from her website, and her candles are also sold on Amazon. But even though my grandmother Ruby had all these things going on, she was still down to earth. She was even a part of a book club. The book club met up every 2 weeks, down in her cellar basement, and she wouldn't let me participate. She told me that the book that they were reading was dark, and they were having a very heavy adult discussion about it. Nothing a young girl my age should hear. She told me it would give me nightmares. But I knew something about the book club meetings seemed weird to me. For one, they would meet at midnight, and two, I could sometimes hear chanting coming into my bedroom through the vents. I also used to see shadows just outside the threshold of my bedroom door. One night I woke up, and from under my door, I saw a shadow on my floor. It was in the shape of a goat, and I could hear voices in my room saying my name. This, of course, scared the hell out of me. I told my grandmother the next day what I saw, but she was able to convince me it was just a bad dream, and she just laughed it off. But strange things continued to happen to me every time my grandmother Ruby met with her book club, and soon I would find out why these things were going on.
I'd be better off if they were dead. This house is pure evil. I believe this house leads to a portal to hell. I believe the devil is here.
I was speechless for a moment. I could feel her apprehension right through the phone. Suddenly, all the doors in her house slammed shut. I heard the phone drop to the floor as Tammy screamed for her kids to run. Do you remember I told you at the beginning of my story that my grandmother Ruby would choose my friends? Well, I found out all of the friends I was allowed to speak to were kids of the parents from my grandmother's book club. I didn't really see these kids as my friends, except for one, and his name was Bob. Me and Bob hit it off instantly. We had chemistry. And it didn't hurt that I thought Bob was good looking. I would spend a lot of my time with Bob, every time he would come over. He was funny, charming, and very smart. I was falling for Bob. I was happy to find out Bob felt the same way. We had fallen in love. I knew one day I would marry Bob. It was inevitable. Me and Bob decided we would tell my grandmother Ruby, since my 18th birthday was soon approaching. This is when me and Bob would marry, and there would be nothing Ruby can do, since I would be an adult, under the eyes of the law. My grandmother would no longer have any say-so in my life. She would no longer have any control. At least, that's what I thought. The week of my 18th birthday, that's when I noticed things really started to ramp up, as far as me seeing dark shadows, creepy small creatures crawling across my bedroom floor, hearing disembodied voices calling my name, and horrifying nightmares. It felt like I was going insane. Plus, I ended up really sick for a couple of weeks. I ended up bedridden. It felt like I had the flu. I kept running a temperature of 102. But my grandmother stayed by my side the whole time. She made and fed me some homemade chicken noodle soup. And by the week of my 18th birthday, I started to feel better. I felt like myself again. I saw Bob a few times that I could remember while I was sick. At least, I think it was him. I don't know. I'm not really sure. Because my memory is a bit foggy. But since I have been feeling better, I haven't heard from Bob, which to me is confusing and odd. I have called and texted him, but I haven't received any response. Could he be ghosting me? Could he have changed his mind? Could he have cold feet? No. Bob wouldn't do that to me. I decided to talk to my grandmother to see if Bob visited me while I was sick. My grandmother confirmed that he did. She said,
You don't remember seeing Bob? Vaguely. My memory seems to be a bit hazy. So, you have a crush on Bob. It's okay. You can tell me.
I took a deep breath and I told my grandmother.
Yes. Is it that obvious that I love him? To tell you the truth, we are planning, when I turn 18, to run away to get married.
My grandmother just stood there with a smirk on her face. Then she said,
Yeah, I knew about that. Bob told me everything before he met his end. You were just like your mother. I made that mistake once. I wasn't going to let it happen again.
My heart dropped. What did she mean by Bob met his end? With a shaky voice, I asked my grandmother.
Grandmother, what did you do?
She said without missing a step.
I tortured Bob for information about you and him. And that's when he told me that you two were in love. And you're going to marry. I told him no. That was never going to happen. That's impossible. I let him know that you were already promised to be married to a powerful being. That you were going to marry the devil.
I looked at my grandmother as if she was crazy. She must have been drinking. I said,
What? Why would you tell Bob that insane lie? I know you were really protective of me. And you're still upset about what happened between you and my mother. But you can't control me. And it doesn't help you making up lies to scare Bob away. It's just plain crazy.
My grandmother just shook her head as I saw her sweet demeanor suddenly change. She said,
You are an ungrateful bitch. You think you have a choice in this situation. You don't. You have been promised to the devil since you were conceived. This is the reason me and your mother ended up in that huge argument. You see, the book club members who visit me are all a part of my witch's covenant. And I'm the covenant leader. And your mother was also a part of the covenant. She was the second in command. She promised you to the devil. To marry him when you turned 18. This is why you could only go to school and come home. And why I chose your friends. You have to be a virgin, and you will produce the devil an heir. This is a part of our pact, our contract. But your mother changed her mind, and she ran off with your father and you. They tried to hide. It took me 5 years, but I found them. I tried my best to convince your mother and father to come back, to complete the pact. But she refused, and she told me no. This really broke my heart, but I also couldn't let her stubbornness and pride take away everything I worked hard for. So your mother and father were marked, which led to their car accident and their decapitation. And this is why Bob had to go also. Yes, you will marry when you turn 18, at the end of the week. You will marry the devil. I will personally see to it.
Suddenly, I was grabbed by 2 shadowy creatures from nowhere. They took me to a room with no windows in my grandmother's house. It looked like a dungeon. They locked me up until the day of the ceremony. So now here I am standing here at the altar. as my grandmother and her covenant chant as the time comes closer to midnight. As I stand here as an unwilling bride, I'm scared, afraid, and terrified. Exactly at midnight, everything starts to shake, and the ground opens up. I see the red glowing light in the fiery pit, and the tormented screams from hell. I close my eyes, and I begin to think about Bob, how much I love him, and the last time he visited me before I became sick, and how we made love. I smiled as I thought about that memory. I wonder what is going to happen to my grandmother and her covenant once the devil finds out this, that I'm no longer a virgin.